The alarm blared through the curved halls of Monitoring Station 12, its harsh sound making Officer Maury nearly spill his hot drink. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he turned to the main screen. Something had crossed the outer boundary. "What is it now?" Commander Vrel asked, her tall frame appearing in the doorway. Unlike the shorter, rounder technicians, she belonged to the warrior caste of the Krillian species. Her skin had the metallic blue sheen that showed her high rank. Maury's fingers danced over the controls. "Unknown vessel, Commander. It crossed the Helios boundary 3 minutes ago." His voice became quieter. "The energy signature. It matches old records." Vrel stepped closer, her breathing now controlled and slow. "Show me." The main screen filled with the image of a dark, angular ship. Its surface was smooth in some places, bumpy with weapons in others. It moved with purpose, cutting through space like a knife. "Run the comparison," Vrel ordered. Maury pressed a button. The computer showed a match, 98.7% similar to human warship designs from the archives. The room went silent. Even the junior officers who had not been born during the war knew what this meant. "Humans." Vrel said the word like it was poison. After 50 years of silence. The first contact war had lasted only 8 months, but everyone in the galaxy remembered it. The humans, a newly discovered species from a backwater system, had fought with a violence no one expected. When cornered, they didn't surrender like reasonable beings. They kept fighting, often finding new and terrible ways to win even when outnumbered. In the end, both sides stepped back. The humans closed their borders. The Galactic Council declared them a Class 5 danger species. For 50 years, neither side bothered the other. Until now. "Send the alert to Centralis," Vrel commanded, "and open a channel to the human ship." Maury looked nervous. "Commander, protocol says we should not engage." "I know the protocol." Vrel cut him off. "But that ship is heading toward the core worlds. If they ignore us, that's one thing. But we must try." The communications officer sent the hail. They waited. The human ship continued forward, not changing course, not slowing down. "No response, Commander," the officer reported. Vrel stared at the screen. "How fast are they moving?" "That's the strange part," Maury said. "They're pushing their engines beyond safe limits. At this speed, they'll reach Centralis in 3 days." 3 days? Vrel's skin darkened with concern. "That's impossible. The journey takes 2 weeks even for our fastest ships. Human technology appears to have improved." During their isolation, Maury said quietly. The station's second alarm began to sound. This one was worse. It meant an emergency transmission was being sent throughout all Council space. Every planet, every station, every ship would soon know. A human warship was coming. Vrel turned to her officers. "Level 1 alert. I want all data on that ship. Weapons, speed, crew size, everything. And keep trying to contact them." As the officers rushed to obey, Vrel remained still, watching the dark shape of the human vessel. She had been a junior officer during the war, had seen what human ships could do. One was bad enough. But humans never sent just one ship unless this was not an attack but a message, or a warning. Either way, the Galactic Council would soon face something they had hoped never to see again. Humans leaving their borders, bringing with them the chaos that seemed to follow their species everywhere they went. The human warship moved onward, silent and determined, ignoring all attempts at communication. Whatever its purpose, the galaxy would know soon enough. The great hall of the Galactic Council on Centralis buzzed with panic. Hundreds of representatives from across the galaxy sat in rising circles around the central speaking platform. Emergency lights pulsed along the walls, turning the usually calm blue glow into an anxious red. High Counselor Nix banged his gravity hammer on the floor 3 times. The room slowly quieted. "We have confirmed reports," Nix announced, his voice carrying through the vast chamber. "A human warship has entered our space and is moving toward the core worlds." The hall erupted again. Some representatives shouted questions. Others simply wailed in fear. Ambassador Len of the Trilled species stood up. Unlike most council members, he had actually met humans during peace talks long ago. His spotted skin and calm manner made him stand out. "Has the human ship made any threats?" Len asked. "Have they communicated at all?" Military advisor Jack stepped forward. His body was covered in battle armor that clicked as he moved. "They ignore all messages, but their actions speak for themselves. The ship is heavily armed and moving at dangerous speed." Jax touched a control on his wrist. A large hologram appeared above the central platform. It showed recordings from the First Contact War. Human ships firing strange weapons. Human soldiers fighting with what looked like joy on their faces. The images were edited to seem more frightening, but no one noticed. "We must remember what we face," Jax continued. "Humans are unpredictable. They do not fear death like normal species. During the war, they sometimes destroyed themselves just to damage our ships." A representative from a small outer world stood up. "But why now? After 50 years of silence?" No one had an answer. The room grew quiet as each being imagined terrible possibilities. Ambassador Len spoke again. "Has anyone considered that they might need help, or that they might be trying to help us?" Laughter spread through the hall. Help from humans. The idea seemed absurd. "The Grand Fleet has been mobilized," Jax announced. 300 warships are moving to intercept the human vessel in the Proxima sector. They will stop it before it gets any closer to Centralis. This news calmed many representatives. 300 ships against one seemed like good odds, even if that one was human. But Ambassador Len was not comforted. He remembered something a human diplomat had told him during the peace talks. "We never start fights, but we always finish them." The human had said it with a smile, but Len had sensed the truth behind the words. "What if they send more ships?" someone asked. Jax shook his head. "Our deep space monitors show no other human vessels." "This is strange." Humans always traveled in groups during the war. The High Counselor raised his hand for silence. "We have less than 2 days before the human ship reaches the interception point. Until then, we will raise all planetary shields and prepare evacuation plans for key worlds." As the meeting continued, Len slipped away to his private chamber. He found an old data crystal in his desk and inserted it into his reader. The face of a human appeared, an older male with lines around his eyes and gray in his hair. "If we ever meet again," the recorded human said, "I hope it's under better circumstances." Len turned off the recording. He had a bad feeling about all of this. The humans he had met were dangerous, yes, but they were not mindless destroyers. They would not break 50 years of isolation without good reason. Whatever that reason was, Len suspected the Council was making a mistake by treating the human ship as an automatic threat. But who would listen to him? Fear of humans was too deeply rooted in the galactic memory. Outside his window, Len could see military ships rising from the planet's surface, heading to join the Grand Fleet. The galaxy was preparing for war, and no one was asking why. Admiral Dorn stood on the bridge of the Righteous Claw, the largest ship in the Grand Fleet. 300 warships spread out before him in the classic pincer formation. This battle plan had won 1,000 fights across 10,000 years of galactic warfare. Now it would stop one human ship. "The human vessel will enter our sensor range in 6 minutes, reported First Officer Pike. His thin fingers moved across the control panel with practiced ease. "Show me the formation status," Dorn ordered. A hologram appeared, showing all 300 ships in their proper places. Wing A curved above. Wing B curved below. The center force held strong in the middle. The formation looked like the open mouth of a great space beast, ready to swallow the human ship whole. "All ships report ready, Admiral," Pike said. "Weapons charged. Shields at maximum." Dorn nodded. He had studied the old records of human warfare for 2 days straight. They were clever fighters, these humans. Unpredictable. But surely they would not be foolish enough to challenge 300 ships with just one. "The human ship has entered sensor range," announced the sensor officer. The main screen showed the human vessel. It was larger than Dorn expected. Black and gray metal with strange markings on the side. The ship's design looked both beautiful and frightening, like a predator built for speed and power. "Magnify those markings," Dorn ordered. The screen zoomed in. Strange human symbols appeared, along with a name, HSS Redemption. "What does HS mean?" Dorn asked. "Human spaceship," answered Pike. "And redemption is a human word for making things right after doing something wrong." Dorn frowned. An odd name for a warship. "Sir, the human ship is not slowing down," called the sensor officer. "They will reach our formation in 3 minutes. Open a communication channel," Dorn said. "We should at least follow protocol." The communications officer worked quickly. "Channel open." "Sir." Dorn stood straighter. "This is Admiral Dorn of the Galactic Council Grand Fleet. You have entered Council space without permission. Stop your engines and prepare to be boarded, or we will open fire." For a long moment, there was silence. Then the screen flickered, and a human face appeared. The bridge crew gasped. Few had seen a real human before. This one had a hard face with a scar running from eye to chin. His skin was darker than the humans in the old videos. His eyes looked tired but determined. "This is Captain Tom of the HSS Redemption," the human said. His voice was deeper than Dorn expected. "We acknowledge your warning, but we cannot stop." Dorn's skin flushed with anger. "You faced 300 warships, human. Your single vessel cannot hope to." "Stand aside," Captain Tom interrupted. "We're not here for you. We're here to save you." The bridge went silent. Dorn blinked in confusion. "Save us? From what?" "From something worse than humans," Captain Tom answered. "Something that's already here in your space. Something we faced before." Dorn looked at his officers. They seemed as confused as he felt. "This is clearly a trick," Pike whispered. "Humans are known for their deceptions." But Dorn wasn't sure. The human's eyes held no lies that he could see. "I propose a meeting," Dorn said finally. "There is a neutral station nearby. We can discuss this threat you speak of." Captain Tom nodded. "Agreed. But we must be quick. Every hour matters now." The transmission ended. The human ship slowed, but only slightly. "Sir, are we really going to meet with them?" Pike asked, his voice showing his disbelief. Dorn watched the human ship on the screen. 300 ships against one gives us confidence to talk, don't you think? Besides, I want to know what game they're playing." The order went out through the fleet. The human ship would be allowed to dock at Neutral Station 7, under heavy guard. Captain Tom would meet with Admiral Dorn. And perhaps, Dorn thought, they would learn why humans had broken their long silence. What could possibly be so dangerous? The humans would claim to be saviors rather than conquerors. Neutral Station 7 hummed with nervous energy. The meeting room had been quickly cleared of all weapons. 20 guards stood along the walls, their eyes never leaving the door where the human would enter. Admiral Dorn sat at the large round table, trying to look calm. Next to him sat his advisor and 2 security officers. Across the empty chairs waited for Captain Tom. The door opened. The human walked in with a steady step. He was shorter than Dorn expected, but he moved with the confidence of someone who knew his own strength. 2 human officers followed him, their faces showing no fear despite being surrounded by aliens who clearly hated them. "Admiral Dorn," Captain Tom nodded as he sat down. "Thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Dorn studied the human's face. The scar looked deeper in person. "You claim to be here to save us. From what?" "We call it a void rupture," Tom said. He placed a small device on the table. It projected a 3D image of swirling darkness. "Your scientists might have another name for it, but it doesn't matter. What matters is that it's forming in your space, near the Tellus sector." Dorn frowned. We have detected no such phenomenon. You wouldn't know how to look for it, Tom said. His voice wasn't proud, just matter of fact. Humans encountered a void rupture 20 years ago. At our colony world, New Terra, we lost 3 million people before we learned how to detect it early. One of the human officers, a woman with short gray hair, spoke up. The rupture starts small, almost invisible. By the time you can see it with normal sensors, it's too late. It consumes everything. Matter, energy, even light. And it grows, added Tom. Each thing it takes makes it stronger, bigger. If left unchecked, it could swallow whole star systems. Dorn looked at his advisor, who shrugged slightly. They had heard of no such danger in all galactic history. If this is true, Dorn said carefully, why would humans come to help us? We are not allies. Tom's face hardened. Because no one deserves what the void brings, because we know how to stop it. And because if it grows large enough in your space, it will eventually reach ours. So, self-interest, Dorn nodded. This, at least, made sense to him. Partly, Tom admitted, but mostly because it's the right thing to do. The Redemption carries a device we call a void sealer. It's the only known technology that can close a rupture. Convenient that only humans have this technology, Dorn's advisor muttered. Tom's eyes flashed with anger, but his voice stayed calm. We developed it through terrible sacrifice. We would share the knowledge, but there's no time to build another one now. The rupture in your space is already growing. Dorn still wasn't convinced. We have no proof this void rupture exists. This could be an elaborate trick to get your warship deep into our territory. As if answering him, a young alien rushed into the room. Admiral, urgent message from Centralis. The messenger handed Dorn a datapad. His eyes widened as he read. The mining colony on Orin 5 has gone silent, Dorn said slowly. All communication stopped suddenly. The nearest patrol ship reports unusual darkness in the area. Tom nodded grimly. It's starting. The rupture has claimed its first target in your space. There will be more. Soon. The room fell silent. Dorn looked at the human captain with new eyes. What if he was telling the truth? I must report this to the council, Dorn said finally. While you talk, people die, Tom replied. The rupture won't wait for your politics. Dorn stood up. Return to your ship, human. I will contact you after I speak with the council. As Tom turned to leave, Dorn called after him. If you are lying about this threat, you and your crew will never leave our space alive. Tom looked back, his eyes tired but determined. If I'm lying, Admiral, you can kill me yourself. But if I'm telling the truth, every minute we waste means more lives lost to the void. The door closed behind the humans. Dorn stared at the report in his hand. A whole mining colony, gone without warning. Could it really be this void rupture, or was it part of some human plan? He needed to decide, and quickly. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Reports of 2 more systems going dark had reached Centralis. Fear filled the air like a poison. Order! Order! High Counselor Nix shouted, banging his gravity hammer. Slowly, the noise died down. Admiral Dorn stood in the center of the chamber. His hologram flickered slightly from the long-distance transmission. I have met with the human captain, he reported. He claims a phenomenon called the void rupture is forming in our space. According to him, it is responsible for the communications blackouts. Military Advisor Jack stepped forward, his armor gleaming. This is clearly a human trick. They cause these blackouts themselves, then offer to save us as an excuse to deploy their weapon deep in our territory. Many representatives shouted their agreement. Screens around the chamber showed images of the human warship, looking dark and threatening. If I may speak, Ambassador Len said, rising from his seat. I have studied the reports from Orin 5 mining colony before it went silent. Their last transmission mentioned strange darkness and sensors failing. This matches what the human captain described. You always defend humans, Len, Jack sneered. Perhaps you've spent too much time talking with them in the past. Len remained calm. I simply suggest we consider the possibility they are telling the truth. What if this void rupture is real? We have never encountered such a thing. But our galaxy is vast and full of dangers we haven't discovered. A science advisor named Mira joined the conversation. Her 6 eyes blinked nervously as she spoke. Our deep space telescopes have detected something unusual in the affected areas. A sort of absence. Not just darkness, but an area where nothing seems to exist anymore. The council murmured uneasily at this news. The human captain says they have technology that can close this rupture, Admiral Dorn continued. A device called a void sealer. They request permission to take their ship to the affected area. Absolutely not. Jax slammed his fist on the railing. This is exactly what they want. Access to our inner systems. Next they'll say their device failed and more human ships must come. Before we know it, they'll have an invasion force in our heart. High Counselor Nix raised his hand for silence. We face a difficult choice. If the humans speak truth, we may need their help. If they lie, we risk much by trusting them. More shouting filled the chamber. Arguments broke out between those who feared the growing darkness and those who feared humans more. In the midst of the chaos, a new message arrived. Another system had gone dark. This one had a population of over 5 million beings. The news silenced the room. 5 million. Someone whispered. Just gone. Admiral Dorn's hologram spoke again. The human captain warned this would happen. He says the rupture grows faster as it consumes more. We may not have much time to decide. High Counselor Nix looked older suddenly, the weight of decision heavy on him. We will vote. Do we allow the human ship to proceed to the affected area, or do we force them to turn back? The vote was close. Fear of humans ran deep in many representatives, but fear of the spreading darkness ran deeper in enough of them. The council has decided, Nix announced finally. The human ship may proceed to the affected area, but under heavy escort. 50 of our best warships will accompany them. If they make any suspicious moves, they will be destroyed immediately. Admiral Dorn nodded. I will lead the escort fleet myself. As the meeting ended, Ambassador Len approached the High Counselor privately. I believe we've made the right choice, he said quietly. Nix looked troubled. Have we? Either way, we take a great risk. Either we face this void rupture, or we face humans with their weapons deep in our space. I'm not sure which frightens me more. Len gazed out at the stars through the chamber's great window. The humans I met spoke often of taking risks to do what's right. Perhaps this is one time we should learn from them. The orders went out across space. The human warship would be allowed to proceed, surrounded by 50 council ships. They would face this darkness together, whether it was a real threat or a human deception. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same after this day. The fleet moved through space at high speed. The human ship, HS Redemption, led the way with 50 council warships following in tight formation. The stars streaked by as they pushed their engines to the limit. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Dorn watched the human vessel with wary eyes. Status report on the Redemption, he asked. They maintained course toward the affected zone. First Officer Pike answered. Their power readings are strange. They seem to be channeling most of their energy to a device in their central hold. The supposed void sealer, Dorn muttered. Sir, called the communications officer. Captain Tom is requesting to speak with you. Dorn nodded. Put him through. The human's face appeared on screen. He looked more tired than before, with dark circles under his eyes. Admiral, Tom said, we're approaching the edge of the rupture zone. I'd like to share more information about what we're facing. Permission to come aboard your ship. Dorn hesitated but then agreed. 20 minutes later, the human captain stood on the bridge of the alien flagship. The crew stared at him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Thank you for allowing this, Tom said. He placed a small device on the main console. It projected a 3-dimensional map of the area ahead. This shows the current extent of the void rupture. A large black area swirled in the middle of the map, with tendrils of darkness reaching outward like hungry fingers. It's growing faster than we predicted, Tom explained. The Orin 5 colony was just the beginning. It's already consumed 3 more systems since we started this journey. How does this thing work? Dorn asked, staring at the blackness. We don't fully understand it, Tom admitted. It seems to be a tear in the fabric of reality itself. It doesn't just destroy matter, it erases it completely from existence. No trace, no radiation, nothing left behind. The aliens on the bridge shifted uncomfortably. And you've faced this before, Pike asked. Tom nodded. 20 years ago at New Terra, we lost the entire colony before we realized what was happening. 3 million people gone in less than a week. He touched the device, and the image changed to show a recording. A planet with blue oceans and green land masses slowly disappeared as darkness swallowed it piece by piece. How did you stop it? Dorn asked. With sacrifice, Tom said quietly. The Void Sealer works by creating a controlled implosion at the heart of the rupture. It forces the tear to close in on itself. But someone has to take it to the center. Understanding dawned on Dorn's face. A suicide mission. Tom's expression remained steady. We prefer to call it a necessary risk. Silence fell over the bridge as the aliens processed this information. One crew member whispered to another, "Why would anyone willingly do that?" Tom heard the whisper. "Because sometimes the needs of many outweigh the needs of one," he said. "It's a human concept called sacrifice. I'm sure your species has something similar." The aliens looked away, uncomfortable with the idea. As they continued toward the rupture, several council ships reported system failures. Their sensors couldn't handle the strange energy patterns coming from the darkness ahead. "Your ships should fall back to a safe distance," Tom suggested. "The Redemption is specially shielded for this mission." "We have our orders," Dorn replied firmly. "We stay with you." Tom nodded with what looked like respect. "At least keep your distance from the edge of the rupture. If you get too close, it will pull you in." Over the next hours, 10 more council ships had to turn back as their systems failed completely. The remaining 40 pushed forward alongside the human vessel. The darkness grew larger on their view screens. It wasn't just black. It was an absence of everything, a hole in reality itself. "We'll reach the outer boundary in 6 hours," Tom said as he prepared to return to his ship. After that, the Redemption goes in alone. Dorn watched the human leave. For the first time, he wondered if maybe humans weren't the monsters the galaxy had believed them to be. Maybe they were something else entirely, something the Council had never truly understood. The void rupture hung before them like a wound in space itself. No stars shone through it. No light escaped it. It was a perfect emptiness that hurt to look at. The HSS Redemption hovered at the edge of the darkness. Behind it, 40 council ships maintained position at what they hoped was a safe distance. Their sensors struggled to function this close to the anomaly. On the bridge of the Redemption, Captain Tom looked at his crew. These men and women had volunteered for what might be their final mission. They knew the risks better than anyone. "Final systems check," Tom ordered. His second-in-command, Officer Ray, read from her screen. "Void Sealer is at full power. Hull integrity at maximum. All systems ready, Captain." Tom nodded. He opened a channel to the Council flagship. "Admiral Dorn, we're ready to proceed." Dorn's alien face appeared on screen. "Are you certain this will work, Captain?" "No," Tom answered honestly. "But it's the only chance we have." There was a pause before Dorn spoke again. "Why are you doing this, human? Truly, your people and mine have been enemies. You could have let this rupture consume our worlds and waited until it was weak before stopping it." Tom smiled slightly. "That's not who we are, Admiral. Not anymore. Maybe once, during the war, we could have fought that way. But we've learned since then." "Learned what?" Dorn asked. That the universe is too big and too dangerous for any species to face it alone, Tom said. We need each other, even if we don't always get along. A light flashed on Tom's console. We have to go now. The rupture is expanding again. Good luck, Captain, Dorn said, and for the first time, he sounded sincere. Tom turned to his crew. Ready, thrusters. Take us in, slow and steady. The Redemption moved forward. The darkness swallowed its front end, then its middle, then nearly all of it. Only the engine glow remained visible to the watching council ships. Inside the Redemption, systems flickered. The ship shook as reality itself seemed to pull at it from all directions. Hull integrity at 82% and falling, Ray reported. Her voice was calm despite the danger. Keep going, Tom ordered. We need to reach the center point. The darkness inside the rupture wasn't empty as it had seemed from outside. Strange energies swirled around them. Occasional flashes revealed debris, pieces of planets, ships, and other things that had been caught in the void's grip. Look there, pointed Officer Banks from the science station. Those are pieces of Orin 5. The crew watched with solemn faces as they passed the remains of the mining colony. Millions of lives had already been lost to this thing. Center point in 2 minutes, Ray announced. Tom moved to the special console that controlled the void sealer. He entered his access code and placed his hand on the scanner. Sealer prepped and ready, he confirmed. All crew to emergency pods. No one moved. Tom looked up, surprised. That's an order. Ray stood straighter. With respect, Captain, we're staying. The pods might not make it out anyway. Better to finish this together. The others nodded in agreement. Tom felt a strange pride swell in his chest. This was humanity at its best, facing impossible odds together, willing to sacrifice everything for something greater than themselves. Center point reached. The navigation officer called out. Activating void sealer, Tom said. He pressed the final sequence. The ship hummed as the device powered up. Light built around them, brilliant and blinding in contrast to the darkness outside. 40 seconds to implosion, the computer announced. Tom opened a channel to the council fleet. Sealer activated. If this works, the rupture will collapse inward. If we don't make it out, tell your people what happened here. We will remember, Dorn promised. The light grew until it filled the ship. The hull creaked under the strain. 10 seconds, the computer counted. The crew stood at their posts, steady and calm. 3, 2, 1. The light exploded outward from the Redemption. The darkness of the void seemed to fold in on itself, contracting rapidly toward the center point. A massive wave of energy burst outward. The council ships braced for impact. The energy wave washed over them, scrambling systems temporarily, but causing no real damage. Then silence. Where the rupture had been, only normal space remained. Of the Redemption, there was no sign. Days passed. The council ships maintained position, scanning continuously. Most believed the humans had perished in the implosion. Then a faint signal appeared on their sensors. A badly damaged ship limped out of the area where the rupture had been. Its hull was scorched and torn, but the name was still visible. HSS Redemption.